Hi, and welcome to episode 123 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram and Periscope. And today is Sunday, October 25th, 2015. This is one of those weeks where I'm really glad I have a big backlog of projects that you've never seen because I spent most of this week knitting the same 2 inches over and over and over and over again. I don't know, they call it Zen knitting. I just was never satisfied and I rip it out and redo it. But that I'm going to show you later. I have shoes to show you later, but you want to stay tuned for them because there is a knitting connection with the shoes. So I have finished projects, but I always start out with what's on my needles. And the projects that I'm going to show you, I started these all in August when I did the big group of cast-ons. And the first one, I guess both of them that I'm going to show you are sort of projects that I'm re-knitting. I knit one and then I like the pattern so much I wanted to redo it again. So the first one is a little shawl, a little shawlette. It's called Out of Darkness. It's by Boo Knits. And last spring I knit a little version that had, it was an alpaca hand painted yarn. It was sort of blues and grays. And I didn't add any beads to it. I did, the pattern, there's kind of a couple different options that you can work from. You can do kind of garter in the top, or you could do stockinette, or you can do, add beads to it. And I did it with a garter top, and then I didn't add beads. And I remember saying the way she did, worked the lace patterning, with the increases and decreases like you do for lace. It kind of centered around where she was placing the beads. And so I felt like I really liked the version that I did. I just felt like I needed a second go at it and to do one adding all the beads just to see kind of the difference. And so that's what I started that. So this is where I am on that. It's a little crescent shaped shawl. The yarn that I'm using is Kid Silk Haze, and it's this very kind of soft, I was going to look up to see what they actually call the colorway because it's not written on here. The color number is 653, but I want to say it's called Pearl or something like that. It's kind of a pink based light taupe sort of color. I really like it. It's a very soft color. I bought this yarn a couple of years ago when I went up to the cities, like maybe 3 years ago. I know my mom was with me because I bought it at the yarnery, and then kind of kitty corner across the street there was a bead store. It's not there anymore, but I remember we had gone to the yarn shop, and then we went to the bead shop, and I saw these beads, and I marched back across the street and bought the yarn because I thought they would match it so beautifully. So the beads, I don't know if they're going to show. That's all that I have left in the tube, and I don't know if they'll show on this better. You can see them a little bit better, but it's a mixture of, there's kind of the silver lined clear ones, and then there's some kind of like pearly ones. There's some that have kind of a matte finish, but they're all this same sort of tone. And I thought it would be really pretty to do a shawl kind of doing that. So I don't know if they're gonna show. You can sort of see them like maybe reflecting. They're scattered within this top section, and then I have just started the lace, the setup kind of for the fancy lace border, like the Boo Knits always do. This was one skein of the Kid Silk Haze, and then I have a second skein, and I think somewhere I have like leftovers from a third one. So I think I'll be fine with yarn. I don't plan on making it, extending it, past kind of how the pattern is written, like I do sometimes. But I am worried a little bit because I've got what's on in here, and then I've just got this little bit left in here, and so it's a mixture, so I don't know that I could even order it. And the store where I bought them isn't there anymore. I don't know if it's like moved somewhere else, within the cities or not. I just a couple, times ago when I was there, I noticed that it wasn't there anymore. So that is one shawl that I hope to get kind of going back, moving along on. And then I found this other shawl. And honestly, if I completely forgot that I even started this shawl in August. If I had realized it, I probably would have shown it last week when I was showing all the hand spun stuff, because this is out of some hand spun yarn that I spun several years ago. It's comes from a loop bat, and I don't remember what the name of it was, but I'll show you. This is where it is. It's kind of very sparkly. The outside was black, and went from black, through all these colors, and that's really a pretty good representation of the colors. So I was just kind of looking through. I have shelves over here, and I have all the little project bags. The behind me is all the bigger, baskets with sweaters and things, and then over here are like project bags with, things. And I picked up this project bag this week, and I went, "What's in here?" And I looked at it. I didn't remember. I went, "It's sparkly. What is that?" And then, yeah, sure, I remembered that I started it. It's all kind of tangled, so I'm trying to untangle it before I can show you. So this is the shawl, and it's pretty far along, so I must have worked on it a fair amount. So this is it. So it starts with the black, and it goes, through, starting to go through the kind of wine color. And I'll try to open it up and show you. And what this pattern is, it might look familiar to it, because this is another reworking of a shawl that I worked. And this is the Alberta shawl by Annalise Mygard that I knit the great big green hand spun out of into this pattern. And I had just sort of finished that, and I guess I wanted another go at it. It was a really fun shawl to knit. So originally, this is the yarn that I was going to use for that design. And then I ended up doing it with the green hand spun, and it got to be enormous. And I think I figured that the amount of this, see, I don't have a tag with the yardage. I think I figured, well, this would have been enough to do it. So I guess I started out. So this one, I did it a little bit different. I did it kind of extended the top of it. The green one that I did, this kind of stitch pattern, I started right at the top. There's two versions in the directions, and this one I did kind of this mesh at the top and then worked into the starting pattern. And then this pink here, as the pattern's written, she uses sort of several colors, and instead of doing that, what I wanted to do, and this is what I wanted to do with it from the start, is I just kind of went from the other end of the ball and started where she started working with the contrast color, the first contrast color. I just picked up the middle of the ball and started working that, and then I'm going to go back and forth between the outside and the inside where she's doing kind of the contrast color, and then work, so do a couple kind of back and forth that way, and then work through kind of ending with the lightest. So I'm hoping that will work out, and but it's so pretty. I don't know if the sparkles are showing up in person. It's just very sparkly because, it's the black and the dark color, so that the kind of silver sparkles really, really show up. So it's really pretty. So I can't believe I forgot I started a project. I was even, going through and looking at all the handspun stuff last week, and I forgot a project. So then, off the needles, I have something off the needles. You might guess it since I didn't show it in my works in progress, but I finished the shawl that I was working on last week and I think the last couple weeks. And this is another handspun shawl that I started last spring. I spun the yarn a year ago, like 18 months ago, in the summer, and it was part spindle spun, part wheel spun. And there's just something about my spindle spun shawls are always kind of my favorites. So when last I showed it to you, I was bemoaning the fact that I didn't have enough yarn to do a double ruffle on the bottom of it. And this is just sort of an improvised shawl. It really was meant to kind of make the yarn the star. I wasn't worried so much about the pattern, and just to kind of make it fun to knit, but to kind of show off the yarn, because the fiber was dyed by a friend of mine, and as was a gift to me. So this is the project I knit the same 2 inches over and over and over again. So I had the lightest color. I was almost to that point where I was going to start the lightest color last week when I showed it to you. And I was just going to do just a single ruffle because I had wanted to do a double ruffle and I didn't have enough yarn. So I was just going to do a single ruffle with the lightest color of the gradient. So I went ahead and, I got like really did the whole like ruffle. You have to increase a lot of stitches so that it will have, extra fabric to ruffle. And I just kind of went through the end of the ball of yarn till I would run out. And when I got to the end, I cast off about maybe this far just to see what it would look like. But the ruffle was only about 1.5 inches deep. And it just wasn't long enough. It was big enough. It did kind of anchor the rest of it. It just like, no, I don't like that. So I ripped out that whole ruffle because, when you have all those extra stitches, it's the bottom of the triangle shawl anyway. And then you're, adding all the stitches to ruffle it. So I ripped out the ruffle and went back to kind of the bottom of the last lace section. And then I thought I was going to do something, and I did a little bit of that, and I was like, no, I don't like that. So then I ripped it back again, and then I thought, well, I'll do it's like was mostly the same color. That lightest section had the least amount of variation in it. So I thought, well, I'll do a sideways, edging on it. So I got out, a book and was picked out one and did, like a chunk of it. And, so I could, enough so that you could sort of stand back and kind of see it. And I was like, no, I don't think I like that. So I ripped that out again. And then I just decided there's a quote that I often think of. It's a quote by Gertrude Jekyll, who is a garden designer. I think she was a Rosarian. But I often think of it to try to apply it to knitting, because like sometimes I want to make it like super complicated and intricate and fun, but sometimes you just have to remember simplicity is the key. So I went back to that and I thought, okay, so instead of trying to do something really different and for the edge, I I just went on and did that same lace pattern till I kind of almost ran out of yarn and like edged it with the little eyelets. And it's perfect. I love it so much. So I blocked it out last night, and so this is how it all came out. So here is my finished shawl. I love how the colors sort of stripe and the way the movement in the lace pattern, makes the colors kind of move. The bottom edge, I did the kind of last pink one, and then I just did this one till I almost ran out, and then I did the eyelet on the edge. It was perfect, perfectly perfect. I'm really happy with it. So to block it, I used my really flexible Infinity blocking wires, which I do highly recommend those. I like those a lot for something like this where you want it to like nicely wave. So I just, fed them in through all the eyelets, and then I could just pull out and actually pin at each scallop, had a pin. And then I did use those and go across the top just into it's just got a little garter edge, and I just fed that through there. Those wires I don't like to use that much for like a straight edge because they're so flexible. So there was more pins in the top edge than there were at the bottom, but they worked beautifully. I think I achieved my purpose in that I really wanted something to sort of show off the yarn, and it came out to be the perfect size. I think I counted correctly this time. It was 622 yards, but I really love the size of it. And I want to encourage like all of you, this was a really sort of simple improvised project. I just did bands with a lace pattern, and you say, well, I don't have a lace pattern. I think all knitters should have at the very least one stitch dictionary. I love Barbara. I have a lot of them. Barbara Walker there are 4 Barbara Walkers. But then you can just sort of play. So, you can insert it and you're not really sure what it's going to turn out like. And so then you feel like it's, you could say, oh, this is designed, but really I just kind of knit it on the fly. If you've ever knit a top-down shawl or whatever, you sort of know you do increases in the middle, increases on the outside, and you can, decide how you want to do them. And then I did bands with the lace and the bands with the stockinette, and then, just decide how you want to do the edge, if you have enough yarn for a double ruffle. Someday I am going to do another one, like kind of similar, and get my double ruffle shawl done. But I'm just really, really pleased with how it came out. I'll show you. This is the amount of yarn that I had left, which is when you're knitting with hand spun, this is what you want to have left, because I wanted to use, everything that I could. So that's kind of why I went and did that kind of, well, it's not really a border, but kind of that edge treatment on it, so that I could just keep knitting until I almost ran out. At the end, I was weighing it so that I knew I had, 4 kind of rows left. So I would have enough to do the little eyelet border and then the cast off. For the cast off, I just, went back to basics and just did a really loose, just regular cast off, just like you learned when you first started knitting. Sometimes I think, people are always trying to get something better and make this is the stretchy, the whatever. Sometimes all you have to do is kind of go back to basics, and it's a nice loose cast off. Um, but I did it in purl, so I guess it was a little bit different. So to make the garter ridge on the right side, I knit across the wrong side row, and then as I was casting off, I was on the right side, but I cast off in purl loosely. So anyway, I'm very, very pleased with how it came out. So for show and tell, before we get to the shoes, I wanted to thank someone and tell you all about a new contest that is going to be going up in the Friends of Heartland Knits group on Ravelry. But Emily Estrada, who hosts the Fibertown podcast, she just designed a new shawl. It came out right before Rhinebeck. She had one of her last episodes kind of showed it off and everything. But she very kindly sent the pattern to me as a gift, and then said, if you want to do a giveaway for your podcast, I'd be happy to send a gift of that pattern to one of your viewers. Thank you so much, Emily. If you haven't watched that episode, I'll just show you what it looks like. It's a really interesting pattern. I mean, what I just did was like super duper simple, basic kind of top down thing. This has a lot more. It looks really fun to knit, but it's called the Esther Bell Shawl, and you can see it's worn in a couple different ways, but it's kind of got an oval kind of section in the back, and then it's got like wings that you put on, and then it has a whole kind of applied lace border on it. It looks really fun to knit. I know she's got several versions, a lot of pictures in the pattern, but she knit one, and it was in her Rhinebeck pictures. But she knit one that was I think it was out of copper corgi, which is a yarn that I would love to try someday. But it looks really wearable, and it looks really fun to knit. So I have besides the shawls that I showed you today, I think I have 4 more cast on. So I can't cast it on like immediately, but I do want to. I think it would be really pretty in an alpaca yarn. I think I have some hand-spun alpaca. It comes in, you can do it in a figurine, or I think it's a DK version in the directions are in the pattern. So I am going to start a thread in the Ravelry group that you can, there'll be some kind of question that you have to answer. And the only requirements are you have to be a member of my Ravelry group, Friends of Heartland Knits, in order to win. And you also have to be a member of her Ravelry group, which is Fibertown Podcast. I think that's what it's called. But just remember, if you look it up, if you're not already a member and you're going to look it up, the fiber is spelled with an R-E, not an E-R. So, so you need to be a member of both of our groups, and then there'll be, I don't know, some question to answer. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but anyway, I'm going to run that for 2 weeks. So we'll say what would be that, like the 7th, I guess? We'll run it through Saturday, November 7th. So a contest for you all that, I know there's some people who really love the contest. So I hope you all have a good week, and remember to go on over to the Ravelry group and try to win that cute shawl pattern. I am planning on, I want to get maybe a couple more things finished before casting on another thing, but I think it looks like a really fun shawl to knit. So the podcast is on iTunes and YouTube. The YouTube channel is Heartland Knits, 2 words. And I guess that's it. So until I see you next week, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.